If you do not wish to be recorded, please let us know at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I will call this meeting to order at 6:01. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This evening we're going to start off with board recognition, and we have quite a bit of recognition. Our first item tonight, we would like to recognize Grace Smith, our senior board representative. So for the past 2 years, Grace has served on the board, carrying student voice into our conversations. And she's graduating this month, which for some reason is emotional. We're so proud of you. So we want to honor and recognize her today. And I have some gifts for you. Also, I believe one item is ramen. Grace is headed off to college, so she has to experience. Don't knock me off, Michaela. Okay.
Oh, okay. I really want to say thank you. I really appreciate it.
So congratulations. We'll be so excited to meet you on stage and
I'm excited.
celebrate your career.
Your education today.
Super excited. Also, and I see some littles out there, in an effort to support our students' artistic talents, we asked our art teachers across the district to submit student art pieces for the first School Board Art Award. The school board selected one piece of art to represent our elementary and secondary schools. Winners will receive a certificate with their art, and their art pieces will be on display here in the central office with a plaque with their name on it. And the rest of the submissions, which there were many, so proud of our kids, will be displayed at the central office over the summer as honorable mentions. So, it is our pleasure to present the School Board Art Award winners. So we have Felix Zook. You want to come up? Here, help me do this. So Felix Zook from Ptarmigan Ridge Elementary, and Ryan Ayton. Did I say that correctly? How do you say it for me, would you? Ayton, thank you. So please come up from Orting High School. Congratulations, we have certificates for each of you. And because your artistry was right on the dot, sweet inspiration.
That was creative. Thank you so much.
Probably some photos from the board. One of the state athletes.
I don't remember.
Okay. Student board reps, come on down. We're going to do a.
I'm gonna get you.
Honestly, I didn't want to take it out.
Sorry about that, we'll get you a correct.
Mind joining us with a photo?
How many?
Oh, and we have your art too.
Oh,
Living piece.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask if I can
Yeah. Let's have them stand. Join us with a photo. Yes. Yes. Come on.
I was like, I didn't do it for a reason. That's what I heard.
Right up here.
Sure, right here.
You're good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I really,
Hey, good job.
you were very
Good job.
You did, yes, Ed.
Oh, here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you, art students. Super exciting. We can't wait for this tradition to continue, and I want to recognize Brittany for her efforts to start this first school art contest. So very fun, very difficult to choose, but it was an honor to see all the kids' artwork. So now I would like to invite Michaela Pride to the podium. Just walk, you don't have to hurdle. You don't have to hurdle chairs.
Oh, right here, my wall.
I have to read about you.
Oh.
I recognize you.
Do I look this way, this way?
Yep.
No. Oh, yes, go. There we go.
Take it.
Thank you.
So we would like to congratulate the
I'll look this
Ording
way.
High School track and field team as they traveled to the WIA state meet this past weekend to compete against the top 16 athletes in the state in their respective events. Among our many winnings that showcase the triumphant season, the Ording girls track and field team came home with the third place trophy. So proud of them. This team was led by Michaela Pride, who was on the podium in all 4 of her events, and is the state champion in both the 100 hurdles and the triple jump. We are proud of all the progress our track and field team has made, and we look forward to the next season. So please, Michaela, we have
Yes.
some energy.
Look forward to this.
Here's some treats to give you some fuel for your next.
One more time.
Stay.
Another photo.
We should just stay down.
Yeah, you should just stay down.
Let's do it this way.
Yay. Always go inside.
We're taking advantage of it. Definitely. We gotta get them right.
Ready?
Michaela, congratulations. All right, and we're not done yet. There's so much to celebrate around the district. So next, I would like to invite our agriculture teacher, Mia Gum, to the podium to recognize the FFA program. Ms. Mia Gum will speak and share a short video, I think, of the interviews that they conducted with the 6th graders that they taught all year. And then we'll invite the students up. Are we doing videos? Just doing the check, good.
It is an amazing video.
Hi, I'm Matt Carr.
Mr. Carlson. So this team is amazing. We started this program last year, and I knew from the get-go that we needed to bring agriculture and FFA back into the Ording Valley, so we hit it head first last year. We got 8th in state last year, and we came out with a win this year. We went to all K-6. We taught them about agriculture with fun activities. I'm sure y'all saw pig noses everywhere. And this team has changed my life, and they're amazing. make me cry. On our last trip coming home, this is my last trip with them because some of y'all might not know, I'm leaving after this. I only got a couple more weeks left here, and you know, we're a big family unit in the FFA. On our last trip, the last hour of the last van ride, of the last anything with Mrs. Gum ever, I played the saddest Texas country music I could find on my playlist, and every single blubbering kid for the past hour was just straight waterworks. So I was laughing, it was hilarious. But, every single one of them, just tears. But everything, all the hard work, amazing family unit. I love these kids, I'm gonna miss them, they've changed my life. I want to be a teacher now because of these kids. And this little video is just what's to come for boarding and ag. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It's pretty cute.
Carlson, current technical education director for the Boarding School District.
And I'm Mia Gums, I'm the FFA advisor and agriculture teacher for Boarding School District.
And we believe in the future of agricultural
Education. Did you know anything about agriculture before we started coming?
No, not really. Farming? Farming, crops, and apples and fruits and vegetable.
Did you know much about ag before we started visiting?
Nope. That they make a lot of inventions to help society. Little to nothing.
Good, little to nothing.
Farming and stuff.
Farming and stuff, awesome.
Literally like nothing, just like that for farm. They go farming.
Well, what do you know now that we started to teach you guys lessons about agriculture?
Apparently, you can't have a tank top on when welding, like Bruce Willis.
What do you know now?
I know a lot more about like animals and pigs and stuff. About like how they find animals and what types of animals there is. And like how the earth surface works and stuff like farming and animals.
Awesome.
And the different like layers of dirt.
Cool, all right, so was that your favorite lesson?
Yes.
Cool, awesome, because you got to eat a bunch of sugar. Awesome.
I just like to learn about like and like. That's the most
The mask making, the animal mask making? Awesome. The welding? Awesome. What do you know now that we came and taught you all these different lessons?
Well, I don't know part of agriculture, but like how to use like certain tools
Yes, absolutely.
and like what things go in each type of like the bios.
Good, awesome. Okay, what do you know now after our lessons?
I know that you cannot get paid $15 and under to do water.
I think I like that animal where we made the masks and figuring out what the animals were they used for and like what products they used to like you always change.
My favorite lesson was when we got to do the cup with the dirt and the floating in the M&Ms.
The Soil Horizons?
Yeah.
What was your favorite lesson and why?
Mechanics.
Mechanics, all right.
Probably the animal.
The mask?
Yeah, the mask
Awesome. Which one was yours?
I think it was a pig.
The pig. Cool. What do you think FFA is? What is it all about?
I think that FFA is about being confident, having leadership, and working with all the different stations in agriculture.
Awesome. And do you want to be an FFA someday?
Yes.
Awesome.
I think FFA is all about the education of the agriculture, the plants, animals, and mechanics.
Awesome. And then would you want to be an FFA someday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think FFA is all about?
Making better people and better citizens and future farmers in America.
Awesome. And would you ever be a part of FFA someday?
I can think about it.
Awesome. All right.
Like cultures, learning about animals, food, what was used for, and why we use it today.
Awesome. And would you guys want to be an FFA or agriculture when you get to high school?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Sweet. Awesome. Awesome. What do you think FFA is all about?
Future farming. Helping keep the environment nice.
Awesome. What do you think?
Probably teaching kids about agriculture, how to keep the environment healthy.
Awesome.
Some fun stuff to do.
Perfect. And would you guys ever join FFA when you get to high school? Yeah? Awesome. All right.
Teaching kids about how to be safe, how to respect the environment, and just how to be good citizens of society. Smaller kids about America's farmers and how to farm.
Awesome. And then would you want to be an FFA someday?
Yes.
What would you want to do in FFA? Awesome. Good job. And would you ever be an FFA in high school?
Yes.
Yes. Yes? Cool. And what does FFA, why do you think we come here? What do you think FFA is all about?
To inform and let people know what agriculture is.
Absolutely.
About teaching kids agriculture.
Good. And would you ever want to be an FFA someday?
Yes, because I want to teach little kids about things.
Awesome.
So you can teach us how to farm.
Good.
So we can keep farming population alive.
Good. Awesome. And would you ever want to be an FFA when you got to high school?
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe? Cool.
I believe in the future of agriculture. I believe in the future of agriculture. I believe in the future of agriculture. I believe in the future of agriculture.
Do you know what Boarding FFA believes in?
Well, Ms. Gunn, I had the opportunity to see your students do the full Farm for Kids presentation, and I cannot begin to tell you how impressed I was with their poise, their knowledge, how clearly they had prepared and practiced. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and the inspiration to get all these kids to work so hard towards these goals. It's been really fun to celebrate them throughout the year.
Thank you. They are awesome kids.
We have some gifts for you, Mike. Students, please come on up. So we can't send you back to Texas without a mug to remind us.
Of course, thank you
To
so
remind
much.
you of all of us. Thank you. Thank you. And then we have
Thank you.
candy.
Candy, like you guys are dying.
For the young adults, you guys should not be like
Thank you so much.
I don't think you
We're
said.
doing another picture.
I don't think
I
I
know
said
we already
that.
have pictures with you guys,
Another
but.
picture.
One more picture.
I know, you're gonna make me cry.
Yeah, no more crying.
I think we didn't say that.
Oh,
How many
yes.
teams competed?
Oh, yes, yes.
They don't go away.
Yeah, we got it.
Are you ready? Okay, where's someone not forward?
Yes, let's see that.
Forgot to mention, we took home the state championship for the Farm for Kids. So we won first, so we're coming back with 5 next year.
Lots to celebrate.
Congratulations.
So
Thank
proud
you,
of
guys.
those kids.
Thank you.
Yes.
Their work is impacting students all throughout our system, so I'm super proud of those kids. All right, we have even more things to celebrate, so I will turn it over to the board.
I want to say a shout out. I went to the choir concert that was, they did an excellent job. Just watching how she's taken over that program and just, it just keeps flourishing, right? So, they did a phenomenal job.
Very good.
Well,
the American Association of University Women honored 4 of our students. Congratulations to senior Grace Smith for the 2023 Gwen Fletcher Memorial Scholarship, and juniors Stephanie Sandoval, Laura Thornton, one of my former students, and Mackenzie Lowe, who were recognized in math, science, and CTE. I also have to say June is Pride Month, which celebrates LGBTQIA. Oh, there's more plus people. And I have to tell you that the OHS and OPS partnered for the Littles Fair, where the high school students did activities for the Littles, and the kids had so much fun. They had so much fun. They enjoyed bowling, baseball, bubbles, and there is no primary event without bubbles, and other activities during recess. So thank you.
I had the privilege of attending last night's honors awards for the seniors, and it's always, I've gone the past couple years, as well as when my daughter graduated, and it's one of those events that I'm not a parent anymore. Of a high school student, I'm still a parent, but I'm just really proud of all of you guys. So Grace was up and down in her seat, almost on my mom, and it's just such a testament to the students that we have at Ording that, I mean, they're applying for these scholarships and they're being awarded these scholarships and moving on to do wonderful things, and you got to hear a little bit about that last night. And these kids, as Mr. Freeze noted, that as they were incoming freshmen, that was the year the pandemic started, and so their freshman year was interrupted by a global pandemic, and their sophomore year was spent remote learning. And as he said, they could have just, phoned it in, basically not shown up, but they stayed and they did the hard work, and they. It's very, very impressive. It was not a normal 4-year track for you guys. Very proud of you guys.
And actually, I have a compliment for the leadership class, because I always repost the stuff that we have. And Miss Ellis, one of our former teachers, was complimenting all of the wonderful activities that the students are running, and that she was so impressed with all the things that she saw. So I had to say that publicly, because I probably, you know who I'm talking.
Yeah, I know.
That was one of my favorites. So I had, yes. So the audience, not just right here, but the audience notices how much the students are giving to our school district.
I haven't heard anything forever, since she retired.
She's busy hiking and golfing and
Yeah.
all.
Well, this is our last meeting before we celebrate the class of 2023. And fortunately for all of you, the board doesn't talk really during the ceremony. So I just want to take the opportunity to say congratulations to all of our seniors this year. It's a moment of pride for our school district, our teachers, our families, and really our community to send these kids off into the world, and couldn't be more proud of all the work they've accomplished.
And
just
their
like
former
that,
teachers. And their former teachers are also really proud of them.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to just thank our community for all of the scholarships. We had a lot of them, and for a small community, I felt like there was a lot of scholarships given, and we couldn't do that without them, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Very good point. All right. That was a lot of recognition, but it's important to highlight all the good work that's happening around our district, and it's always very exciting. And what an impressive student body we have. So many accomplishments and work, state titles and district appearances, and just the list is quite long this year. All right, so the next item on our agenda is community and staff comments, and we have one speaker tonight. I'd like to invite Principal Collins to the podium.
Thank you. Bonnie, when does my 3-minute start? Do I get a signal?
Here we go.
Okay.
Let's go.
My name is Kevin Collins. Although I'm an employee of the district, tonight I am speaking to you as the parent of a first grader and 10th grader in Orting School District and as a resident since 2017. And I want to talk about the school bond. Although the recent failure to pass the school bond was extremely disheartening, I'm grateful for everyone who put their time and energy into it. I would also like to thank you, our school board, and our superintendent for focusing on the right things. At a time of deep political polarization in our nation, where school districts around the country were having issues, we have had none of those issues. And our failure to pass that bond had nothing to do with this group. You have been focused on all the right things, on supporting student learning and on the future of our district. So I just applaud you and thank you for that. In February, I was absolutely sure that we were going to pass that bond. It felt as though the people understood the need for it. I've never felt such widespread community support in my time in Orting. I've been politically engaged my entire life, and this was one of the hardest losses I've ever experienced. Crushing. But here's the thing, the fight is not over. Next year, we will hopefully have another opportunity. We need more people to understand the stakes. We need people to be engaged. We need people to see that our kids are worth it. Our kids deserve this. It may sound like an attack, but when people vote against the bond, they are voting against our kids. People may think they're voting for their self-interest by voting for lower property taxes, but that is extremely short-sighted because strong schools make for strong communities. Schools are the lifeblood of our communities, and they are more than just a place for our children to learn and receive an education. Our schools are in use constantly. For a small community like ours, our schools are our art centers, our churches, our youth sports facilities. They are the heart and soul of our community, and they need support. The last bond, passed in 2006, built a stadium and a middle school that I happen to work in. Although I didn't have an opportunity to vote for that bond, I am so grateful for those who did. They should take incredible pride in the fact that they built a school with amazing learning spaces and a stadium with one of the most majestic views in the state. The truth of the matter is, there is zero argument against the need to pass the new bond. We are already severely over capacity in 3 of our buildings, and it is just going to get worse. The arguments against it are all I arguments. We need we thinking. Our kids need this, but it's not just for our kids. It's for the kids who aren't yet in our schools and for the kids who aren't even born yet. I brought my family to this community in 2017, and I love it here. I look forward to one day driving into town and looking with pride on the left as I see that beautiful new elementary school, and I will know that it happened because we refused to give up. My first grader wants to be a scientist. I want him to have the best labs that he can have in that high school, and other kids as well. We must continue to fight, we must continue to have hope, and we must persuade the people of our community that passing this bond is absolutely essential for our community. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing this fight until we succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I make it 3 minutes?
Yeah, you did great.
3 more.
Mr. Collins, would you like 3 more minutes?
Can we post that?
Thanks, Phil.
Our board.
Very much.
All right, I will turn it over to Superintendent Hatzenbeaver.
Thank you very much. We're going to pull up a slideshow, which will end with a video and a summer homework assignment for you, board and student board, perhaps, including Grace.
Michaela's like,
Just wanted to share a couple of pictures of Michaela there at State Track. I wanted to put the events that we had girl and boy representation at, which as you can see was quite a number of events that we had participants with. The full report is on our social media page, but they did just a tremendous job. In fact, this weekend was so busy, we had multiple events happening all at the same time, so we'll just highlight a few of those. State Fast Pitch was over in Selah, Washington. The Cards went 1 for 2. The last game was 2 hours late to start, started about 8 o'clock at night, and the Cardinals were fighting hard at about 11 p.m. We were down by a run, bases were loaded, 1 out, and unfortunately we couldn't get that to take the lead, so they went down late at night, and they started about 9 in the morning. So the Cardinals definitely had a long day, but fared very well. The Fife score was, I think, 19-2, so it was really a lot of fun. At the same time that was happening up at Starfire in Tukwila, La Crosse was playing for the state championship once again. Orting is the defending state championship. They beat Enumclaw in the championship round a year ago. This time Enumclaw got the upper hand and was able to take the championship away from Orting, but we were number 2 in a hard-fought battle. State golf happened. They play in the fall, and state is again in the spring. So we had John and Jackson representing the Cardinals at state. Jackson placed in number 24 in the state, so that was a really good showing for OHS golf. Performing arts, we're unfortunately missing the band concert now. That happened to get double booked. As it happens at the end of the year, sometimes there's just so limited window to fit everything in, but we did have a choir concert. Director Milo spoke about that, and if we get out in time, you can get over there and catch a little bit of the performance at OHS Band. We did run a modified Bahar here last month. We are required every year to do some sort of evacuation drill. What we learned last year, evacuating the entire district after it had been a few years, it was relatively easy. All of our students made it to the targeted area within the allotted time. So rather than spend that full time of evacuating every student every year, our conversation with emergency responders is how do we onboard students new to our system. So that's where the transition point was focused. There's a picture of PTR students. We will have a tabletop exercise with many emergency responders. We'll be onboarding in August, the second week of August. So that'll come back, and we'll actually practice what would be more of a realistic scenario of situational emergencies. So we start to see seismic activity. School isn't able to happen. What would we do then? And they'll run us through a series of modifications to emergency threat, and we'll have that conversation with the entirety of the emergency response team about, okay, what would you do? What would we do? How would we proceed if? Because as we get into an event, it's likely to be over an extended period of time, and so they're going to challenge our thinking in that regard. So we'll build from the evacuation exercise to a tabletop with emergency response in August. Best book of the year, Literacy and Improving Academics, was not only a strong request of the local community, that was a significant investment on behalf of the board of directors through TOSAs and curriculum and training, professional development, and it doesn't get better than students sitting and talking to one another about their reading. There's pictures of first and second graders. They read with that new curriculum over 64 books this year, and recently sat down and talked about their favorite. How that translates into SBA scores, I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll probably bring preliminary data to you in July. I would suspect if it's available at that point in time. But we can see irrefutably through the student and teacher lens in your board workshops, there is demonstrable evidence of students growing in remarkable ways with the implementation of that curriculum. Feedback survey, we are asking to Principal Collins's, well, parent, Mr. Collins's feedback. He came in as the dad had tonight. We want to hear their feedback about the bond, and so we're currently engaging in a survey that's on our social media page, on our website. Brittany will do a couple of, in case you missed it, announcements before the end of school. As of last Friday, we had 255 responses, which was a really strong response. So she will present that data to you in July of where we saw the first round, I would say. Attached to the annual report that we'll do in early August, we'll put additional links and QR codes that will hit every household in the, not only the city limits, but the entirety of the district's limits. So we'll be able to take that feedback to you and or to a citizens facility committee as we think about what a potential package might be next year. February 2024 is your earliest window to run another bond, as we ran twice this year. So there's just a few of the questions for you. There's other questions as well. And obviously we would love any stakeholder, whether they have a direct line to our schools or not, to cast their voice and make that heard, because it takes the entirety of all of those voters to determine whether that decision would come through or not. Transition, we did send a letter to families. I brought this up in the previous board meeting. So last week we sent a letter to families speaking more about the transition and the merits of moving to a K-5 model, reminding some folks this isn't just a sudden thing. We had discussed this over a year and a half ago, actually, in August 2021, as we were building a long-range plan. We discussed the right ideal size of elementaries and the pros and cons of different models and where we could put elementaries. So this is really an outgrowing of that. That conversation in August 2021 did feed the bond this year from you as a board of directors. So we did meet to identify which students would go to which school, because we have to do a little bit of a rebalancing. We're trying to minimize transitions, but we want to get into that predictable nature for families. So if they live in the green and they haven't been with us before, they would enroll at Orting Elementary. If they haven't been with us before and they're in the orange boundary, they would enroll at Ptarmigan Ridge. And one of the big primary drivers of that is really around equity. It's around achievement. It's around outcomes. When you as a board looked at the data last year, both through attendance or behavior or through academics, you noticed some disparities, and there's our trends, and we just wanted to lead with that in a very open, transparent way. If you look at third grade data, you can see we fare pretty well in both literacy and mathematics. And what do you notice in the fourth grade year? A significant decline. And that holds true in the fifth grade. And when we unpacked that data for you last year, you begin to see the disproportionate impact. Students with learning disabilities fared much worse than their peers. Students that were homeless, students with a second language background. So even though that data sees a significant decline, that does fare worse for some students. And our conversation, along with all the other benefits, is the structure part of the issue. Is there something about rooting a child out of the place where they have relationships, where they're known? Is that doing something? And I think it is. And so ideally moving to 2K5 elementaries will reduce that transition point. It'll reduce that additional move for a child over time. It will take us a few years to work into where the students coming in stay in perpetuity, because we didn't enroll that way last year or the year before, and we don't want to automatically displace hundreds of children and create more of the same. So as we move into that, our next step will be to notify families. Mostly at this point it appears, and they were going anyway, some boarding primary students will be going to PTR, and a few sections will be staying behind. So that's kind of the difference this year. So it's relatively low impact. Rather than everybody go to PTR fourth grade, 3 classes will stay behind. And we have an additional class that was likely going anyway that will transition a little bit sooner, because we have to balance that first to second grade point. If you remember, we almost grew by 5% this year, so we've added more classrooms, and there's no more space at OPS to do so. So we need some more students to keep class sizes low, keep things balanced to go to PTR. So that is our next step. There will be a whole host of work that our teachers will be doing. My Friday update is geared in profuse thanks and appreciation for all that they and our facilities teams will have to do to make this happen. Facilities closures, I talked about the turf. That's just a picture of what it'll look like, but it's just one of many things happening this summer, and I just wanted to remind you and our public that the facilities team does a lot of work in the summer, and unfortunately we can't keep our facilities open all summer long. There's floors to wax, there's painting to do. Just at PTR alone, there's about 16 different classrooms that in a domino way will have to move, because you can't move A unless B is open. There's floors to clean and scrub. The turf will take approximately 6 weeks to replace. So we unfortunately will have to limit our public access to our facilities over the summer, but we do want to open those as soon as those become available. And I think that's just helpful to get that talking point out there, because some had the impression we were closing our turf tied to the bond or the no vote, and that's just not true. We're closing that because we actually want to make it safer and improve it this summer. Looking at audit results, we did have board representation on our audit, and there's a couple sentences that are very important when we think about trust and public accountability, particularly as it relates to finances. The significant deficiencies, material weakness, we reported no deficiencies, no material weakness. So that means our financials are in very strong shape. It's no surprise, you hear from Marcy every month. And that's really good. They did look at several areas beside financials. They looked at our federal funds that came in through ESSER dollars. They looked at child nutrition cluster. They look at enrollment. Because our funding is tied to enrollment, they want to make sure we're reporting numbers accurately. So they do pressure testing in a lot of different areas, and I'm very proud to say that that is clean as a whistle. Next month, you'll hear a little bit more about the preliminary budget. We'll have an opportunity to get public feedback on the expenditures for the 23-24 school year as you consider in your hearing public's input and testimony related to expenditures, and then that will move to a final budget for the 23-24 school year. And attached in this board report is a statement of priorities that HR and business services worked on, so you can kind of get a sense of how are we allocating for next year in light of the board's vision, goals, and strategic outcomes. As you know, the theme for next year is Inspire. I shared a little bit about the internal videos of what's been happening last month, and I'd like to do a prelude of who will be joining us in kickoff 2023-2024. This is Carol J. Decker.
In June of 2008, I was pregnant with, sorry, are you ready?
Almost. I was getting it. Almost.
Sorry.
So Carol is an author. She's a motivational speaker. She's been featured in Shape Magazine and numerous other media channels. She has written a book titled Unshattered. And we're going to play just a few minutes from one of our interviews with Shape Magazine so you get a sense of who is coming.
With my youngest daughter, and had flu-like symptoms, and I started having contractions, so I ended up going to the hospital and found myself in a situation that I never thought would ever happen to me. I was rushed in for emergency C-section, and 20 days later I woke up from a drug-induced coma to realize that I had a bacterial blood infection from strep pneumonia that went into sepsis. And in order to save my life, they had to amputate both of my feet, my left hand and my right ring finger. I was also diagnosed with ocular neuropathy, which caused me to be completely blind, and also suffered from DIC, where I had wounds from clots in my body, on my thighs, abdomen, and forearms, where I needed skin grafting over 30% of my body as well. In the hospital, the nurses and doctors are caring for you, so some of the reality doesn't really set in, and you're so medicated and sleeping a lot and having multiple surgeries. And without my sight, I wasn't able to really see the results of what happened to me. It was just told to me, and that's hard to kind of imagine. So my reality kind of hit after spending 3 months in the hospital. I came home, and the moment I came home, I realized that my husband was going to have to help me to the toilet because I couldn't do anything for myself. And by the time he laid me on the bed and carried me, I was in agonizing pain and anxiety, and things started to spiral out of control. And I begged my husband, actually, the first night I got home, to take me back to the hospital, that he couldn't take care of me and that I didn't belong here and that I wasn't going to be able to take care of my children, and was very, very depressed and in a state of despair and darkness and crying constantly. And I didn't know how I was going to start or where to start. And at one point, I really just didn't want to live. The first kind of glimmer of hope that I had was my small town of Enumclaw had a fundraiser for my family and I, and there's 11,000 people who live in my town, and there were 5,000 people in attendance at this fundraiser. So when they wheeled me in my wheelchair, they all stood up and clapped for me and my family, and I was so taken with complete strangers wanting to donate their time and money and efforts to want to help me and my family. And I felt like I had this huge support system. My family was coming over constantly to be with me and take care of me and to take care of my children and my husband's family as well, and friends. And so I realized when I came home from that fundraiser that I really had to make some decisions, and that I had a choice to make of whether to give up or pick up. And a hospital bed opened at the inpatient rehabilitation center. And so I chose to go in and relearn to do everything again. I learned quickly in the hospital that I had to make lots of goals in order to achieve the things I wanted to do with my family, because in the beginning I didn't think I would be able to even make cookies with my girls. And I one day eventually made cookies with my girls, and that led to the next thing that I wanted to be able to walk in the neighborhood with them, and then eventually go to a playground, and eventually my greatest goal was learning to go back up to the mountain. I was an avid snowboarder since I was 12 years old, and one of my greatest passions is being in the mountains, and so I set a goal that when Sophia, my youngest, turned 5, that I was going to go back up to the mountain. And so there's this wonderful organization called Outdoors for All. They set me up for an 8-week course, and I learned to go on a sit ski again with my family. And in February 14th of 2014, on Valentine's Day, I was able to ski with my family for the first time. It was absolutely the most amazing feeling ever to be with them and to have my little girls ski by and go, "Hi, Mommy!" And I just took in every moment. I remember crashing later that day, and there's 3 guys that come and help me, and they came over and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm totally fine. I just want to lay here and take in this moment."
Can we pause right there? Can't share all the goods. We gotta
I do
save.
have a life motto,
we gotta
which is,
save some things here coming up for the fall. So as we think about the word inspire, what does it take to go from that kind of context and then not sure if you want to live and put yourself in that victim mode to start to want to survive and then move to a thriver? That's her language. So how do we think about moving that through? How do we think about disabilities as different abilities? It's going to be awesome. One of the best kickoffs ever. So I have a gift, and it comes with a little bit of work. I have a copy of her book for each of you if you would like to read that before she comes. She'll be here on our opening kickoff. We'll have a chance to hear and learn from her. I think that'll fit very well into not only the theme, but around disability awareness, diversity, equity, inclusion, the component that we're required to do. I think the story and how you move will be powerful. So here's your summer work and your challenge, should you choose to accept it.
So will you be recording her presentation? Because as you know, I usually end up, because I have to display.
We will be happy to record.
Great.
I think it'll be very powerful and certainly probably one of the most memorable that we will have had. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So excited for next year. I'm kind of speechless. I'm just gonna go.
I didn't realize she was from Engelbaum when you were telling me.
Her daughter's in my wife's class.
Oh my gosh.
Really, really cool. So there's a cool local connection.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited to learn more. All right. So, we have to follow that, ladies.
Sorry. Sorry.
Do you want to go first? No, I'm gonna let you go. It's your last one. All right. This is you.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good to me. You do your thing. I mean, there's not much to say compared to the last one. You guys have talked about a lot of it. I was gonna mention the choir concert, which I was at too. It was really great. And the Littles Fair happened the day before our last meeting, so I discussed that. Band concert's going on right now. All of our crazy sports, which is incredible. And our senior awards night was a success. It happened. It was really, really good. I thought it was well ran. There's a comment I'd like to make about it, which I don't know if it's a dedication to my class or in general. It was interesting to see the amount of numbers that came out next year. If I'm not gonna be here. That's on you. But getting the attendance up and making sure people are aware and excited. I think excitement will be the biggest part of it, just because I don't know. Just getting people excited about this again. I don't know if it's because my class hasn't seen a lot of these or I don't know, but that would be a big thing for next year if you wanted. Oh, this is on the happier note. I was going to do a project this year, but I ran out of time with everything. And this is kind of goofy, I want to tell somebody about it. I reached out to the Seahawks in beginning of the semester, and I was like, I filled out their big form. It's like, hey, if you want to donate something to a fundraiser, I'm gonna do. I was gonna raise money for something, not the school, a charity. and they just now got back to me. And they sent me a little signed Seahawks helmet by DK Metcalf. So look for that next year. I'm looking at ASB and someone's project will do it, but because I can't do it now, but I thought it was fun.
Someone's gonna use it.
Someone's gonna use it.
Pretty good.
I was saying, that was really cool. And I know, and it was just a testament to say, oh, like if you do reach out to these Washington teams, they do get back to you. I was like, oh, this is fun. It was
It's the end of the year, but they do get back to
They
you.
do. Well, I did say my event was going to be June 2nd. Because I was going to tie it to another one that also fell through. So it all, like, they gave it to me in time. It came on, whatever, Tuesday this week?
Yeah, like a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Oh, our signing day was a really big success. That was also really cool. Got to sign my poster and then we popped all the confetti.
Oh my gosh, I still have that video I need to do. I took a video of them all popping their confetti.
Yes, as you say.
It's
That
really
was
cute. It's really cute.
I'm excited. And then we have our moving up ceremony tomorrow. Well, the seniors sit in the chairs, and then we'll walk out, and juniors will walk up to the senior section in the stands. And there's other awards that happen there. Tomorrow's our field day. I know there's lots of fun things. I think I want to say there's a dunk tank. I know
And
there's
a bull riding.
and a bull, that's what I was about to mention. Bull riding, a bunch of other little crafts, yearbooks distribution. Senior things. Lots of senior things. And then next week, what's next week?
Graduation.
Besides graduation, our activity day so far is still.
That's it. And then my very long end of the school year.
Yeah. That's about it.
16 days.
Is there anything else?
What day is it that you walk around to the school?
The 9th.
The 9th.
That's the day of graduation. They do it in the morning.
Yeah, because we do it after our.
I couldn't remember, but I want to try and get over there. Wait, you guys. I missed that.
That would be fun. Yeah, well, that's all I have. I wanted to say thank you before I was done, just because I really appreciate my time, and you guys have been really impactful and meant a lot to me over the 2 years since the interview for the first time. I really appreciate it, and it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, I really
I guess I have only like 2 more things to add. I was going to talk about the softball team.
Okay.
I think that it is super incredible what they did. I also think that I want to mention that Mike and Jacobson hit 3 home runs in one day.
Wow.
2 in one game, which I think is kind of incredible. I was talking to her in one of my classes, and she was like, because we did the announcement, she was like, guys, I'm going to be on the announcements, watch it, let me hear it. And I was like, I'm waiting for it. So she made us all stop and like listen, and it was great. So I just think that was really cool. My second thing is that I just wanted to thank Grace, because you are really inspiring to me, and I'm so sad that you're going to be gone next year, but I'm also really excited to welcome Jane. So
yeah, I was excited for James.
that was it.
And how many of you are going to Central? Because I saw there was a group.
Wait, Paige, Christian, me, Cody Bravetti, Hunter Stevenson, his name's spelled out when you say it, and me. I guess 6. 5 not including me, which it feels like a smaller number than usual.
Is it just that you know of?
No,
Or is
that's the people that like did the signing
the
stuff
signing.
and like went through with the college and
Yeah.
careers plan. I think that's what's
I
called.
thought that was so sweet last night when the 2 teachers, retired teachers, gave you that scholarship, and the one, her husband had just passed away recently, and it meant so much to her. It was so, it was just so neat to see. It wasn't from Oregon.
She's not from
Oh,
Oregon.
yeah.
It's like over like 5 counties, and there was 2 scholarships within the same community. One was the Memorial Scholarship, which was the first time, and then the other one was just for people inspiring to be like teachers. I was really excited. The ladies were so
They
sweet.
were. She was so, it meant so much to her.
They were so cute. Talking to them on the phone was really funny too. They're like, oh, and they were just so excited. So cute.
It's one of those events where you don't realize, as much as it means to you, the recipient, it
Yeah.
means even more to the people who are giving, who have organized that. And there's always a story, there's always a reason. It's very meaningful.
I really appreciate our community a lot with just that kind of thing. It's insane how much time and money and dedication they give to the community. I've got a list of because I handwrite all my thank you notes.
Wow.
So I've been starting to type out like all my names. I'm like, It's gonna be a lot of thank you notes, but a lot of them are giving back to my community, and that means a lot.
Yeah.
That's all. I love it.
That is part of the requirement of receiving, that every student say thank you. And Ms. Nelson Schlegel ensures that that note is written and in her hand before the next step and the release of funds
Oh, yeah.
happens.
It's good for
That's good. Yeah.
She does a good job.
All right. Same one. Thank you both. Financial report, any discussion? Didn't see any questions come through prior to the meeting. I think we're solid. 2023-2024 budget update for priorities. This one is prepared by Ms. Bannon. Was there any questions about this memo? I like to have this information handy when someone questions our process, how we decide how to spend money. It's very important. I invite them to call Ms. Bannon, and I don't believe anyone's ever taken me up on that. I'll continue to invite them. Welcome to discussion. Is Director Rab present? There you are, sir. Our next topic is a curriculum update. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I heard somebody mention earlier about following, and so here I come up here to give you a curriculum update, and I'm following information about Bruce Willis welding in a tank top. I love middle school kids. Michaela, who's not only a track star, she's a rock star. And Kevin's Let's Get Serious speech, and then Carol's inspirational speech, and to boot, my colleagues are telling me not to be long-winded. So here we go. I get to be inspirational now. But you know, when we're talking about curriculum, and this might make me a teaching and learning nerd, I think curriculum is, with the curriculum work we do, is very inspiring for the reasons I hope to communicate to you. So what I'd like to do just briefly is I'd like to respond to I wasn't able to be at the board retreat because I was with teachers and administrators down at Stanford doing the U-Cubed summer camp training, which is a story for another time, but a very good one. And what we'll do is we'll hear more about that when summer camps either in process or having been at least completed by the middle school this summer, and there's going to be a lot to celebrate from that. But your request to get a little update on the curriculum adoption process, and I believe one of your specifics was how are we involving community, so I'd like to address that. And then I'd also like to kind of give you a high-level overview of how we do that work in a small town with a big view, and then respond to any questions that you might have at the end of that. So in terms of community involvement, the way that we try to involve community in our curriculum is we make them aware of what it is that we're working on, and then they get an opportunity to come view the curriculum and give us any feedback. And that's part of our board process and our board policy. The years that I've been doing this, what I've come to discover is they're probably a lot more interested in knowing where the bus is going than driving the bus itself, in a metaphorical sense, because what I notice is we put it out there, and the interest level really waxes or wanes depending upon what the curriculum is about. So if we're talking about sex education, for example, there's probably a higher level interest of what it is that we're doing about that. Social studies, when we start talking about that, Kevin talked about some of the political tension that is in the air. That can raise some interest in people when they're concerned potentially about how we're pressing into race issues and equity issues and things like that. But for the most part, when it comes to ELA and math and stuff like that, they are interested in knowing, but it doesn't seem that there's interest is much greater than that. And that's not uncommon with districts in the area as well. I was talking to a colleague in Tahoma who they had just done an elementary math adoption, and they did an online kind of a virtual meeting that they had over 50 parents come to the virtual meeting. And then they put out a survey to get their feedback, and 5 people filled it out. So it's not uncommon that they do want to know and want to be informed, but when it comes to curriculum issues, my assumption is you guys are the experts in that. As long as we get a picture of it and we're comfortable with it, we're comfortable with that moving forward. So we can talk more about what your questions and your thoughts are on that, but right now at this point it really pretty much is setting it up and putting it on our website, advertising that people what we're doing, and then have people come look at it, and an opportunity to give feedback. And when we did that with the Bookworms curriculum, I didn't receive any feedback from any parents in terms of any concerns or anything like that. So I do realize that our mission statement is that we are intending on building strong relationships and partnerships with our families. So I see the importance of that and would love to discuss that further with you if you feel that there's a need for it. Moving on to how we do our curriculum process, we were talking with the trainer that we have that's helping us with our bookworm implementation, and as we were setting up the training for that was today and will be tomorrow as well, we were talking about where we were at in the curriculum and what some of our teachers were giving us feedback on and stuff. And she said something that I thought was really important. The first part that I've always known true, but the way she said the second part I thought was really good, and that's that there is no perfect curriculum, and there really isn't. But what she said, but what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to perfect this curriculum for our kids. And I thought that really captured the essence of what inspires me about the work that we're doing relative to curriculum adoption. The lens that we use when we're looking for curriculum is really our agency lens. We want the curriculum can be a really important tool to build agency in our teachers and therefore also in our students. And when we think about connecting and inspiring and empowering both teachers and students, the curriculum process that we use as well as the curriculum we choose really can lean heavily into that. And so that agency filter that we use is really what we're thinking about as we're getting closer and closer to understanding what agency means and how different a lot of our curricular resources are to building agency. We're moving away from the delivery of information and kids trying to capture and maintain and remember and regurgitate that whenever, to opening up the world of learning to them through exploration and innovation, creativity, having a variety of ways of expressing their ideas and their opinions, and whatever the information that they gather, that it's transferable. So when we talk about, whether we're talking about mastery, we're not talking anymore about you got an A. We're talking about that you learned what you can actually transfer and use in other situations, and the more that you can do that with the information and the opportunities that we give you, the greater your agency is going to be. So as we look at that as a lens, the other part of the process that I wanted to kind of put out to you is, in a system our size, what I've come to discover in this process is that we also need flexibility in terms of how we do the process. In the document that I gave you, there's a 5-stage process that I laid out. If we used every single one of those stages, and we have in the past, you're looking at stage 1 taking potentially a year, stage 2 through 4 taking another year, and then the implementation stage taking 2 to 3 years. So for one curricular area, you could have a whole, 7 to 8 years of implementation. How many of those can we handle in a short period of time based on our time and resources that we have? And when I say specifically resources, I'm talking about the teachers that are involved in it, the principals that we want to have involved in it, and myself. And so one of the areas of flexibility, and when I say flexibility, I mean flexibility with the time it takes to do it, not with the quality of the process or the quality of the product. And one of the ways that I've been leaning into that a little bit is I've networked with teaching and learning directors in other districts, in larger districts. Districts that have full-time people to do adoption. That's their job. And so for example, we're looking at some curriculum right now for our elementary math adoption that, based on a conversation I had with the elementary math teaching and learning director in Tahoma, they're in their 3rd year of an adoption process. She shared with me everything that they've done, including their board report, the slide deck, and I'm here to tell you it's perfect. It follows all the same policies and guidelines. Many of those policies and guidelines across systems are the same, but the values, the core values, the kind of math that they're pressing into and what they want to see math be like mirrors what we've been working on here. So I was very confident when I looked at, they started with 7 different curricular resources and narrowed it to 2, that I actually added one of theirs that they tossed out early, not early, but in the later rounds. And I took those 3 resources to our math GBO team and said, here's the 3 resources I want us to look at to consider for piloting next year. And I told them how I got them. And I shared the material with them, and I told them this is what Tahoma came up with, and we talked about what they did and how they did it and stuff like that. The point being that that is a way of kind of making the amount of time, particularly in that stage 1, cutting that down. Because I'm networked with systems that's what they've been doing for 2 years, and they do it in the same way we would do it. So it's sort of like, why try to create the wheel when there's a perfectly round one out there and it's already on the road. And if I'm confident that it's not compromising any of our core values or the vision that we have around agency, then that's what I've been kind of pulling in and leaning in that. And I've outlined what some of those might look like in the document I gave you. We're looking at potentially looking at some material for middle school math, for middle school social studies. I just proposed the idea to middle school for an ELA, same kind of a thing. There is a possibility, and a lot of these resources are called OER, which is online educational resources, which means they're free, so to speak. There's a lot of the materials that are free. The bookworm is an OER curriculum, but as you guys know, we've invested a considerable amount of money into that because teachers still like physical materials that they can handle. And in today's training, which just as a quick sidebar on that one, this wasn't part of my intention, but what I watched no, I can't do it, I'll get too emotional. It was pretty exciting. I'll tell you another time when I can catch my breath, but the work that was done today with those elementary teachers around literacy and identifying where their kids were strong and where their kids had gaps, and then feeding that information forward to the next grade level and linking that to not just the standards at the next grade level, but the actual lessons that will reinforce it. That's what we did today. Never seen that in our district before, so pretty exciting. The conversation was amazing. So I do get inspired by this, and that probably makes me a nerd, but that's okay. I can live with that. So I did put that flexibility elements in there in terms of what that looks like, because what I wanted you to be clear about is that what you're probably most familiar with is this multi-year process that starts here and then moves to this place and then moves to this place. And based on post-COVID needs that we have and what we know, not just post-COVID, but what we understand, and we're gaining our traction and understanding about what agency and dignity and what that red thread looks like in our system and what it doesn't look like out there in a classroom, some significant and immediate changes need to be made with curriculum. And so in order to do as much of that as we can in a most reasonable amount of time, that flexible way of doing that is one of the things that I've been trying to lean into. So with that, I will take any questions that you might have.
Well, for one thing, I'm just glad that we're doing it because we've needed to do this for a long time, I feel like. And I feel like this is the first time that we're really, really diving in and really making it stick and making sure people understand it and use it. So I'm very thankful for that. I think you guys are doing a great job. And I have one thing, I guess it could be a little input. I was talking to my granddaughter and her friend yesterday. They're in the 8th grade. And they said it's the worst they've ever done on the math, SBA, because they are okay at it. And I asked them why, and they said that, and they call them sentences, I don't know what the correct word is, but they said they didn't align at all, that they couldn't figure out what they did in class because they had good grades in class, but that didn't align to what the SBA looked like at all, so they were confused by that. So it's just something to think about. I don't know exactly what they were doing in class, but that was an interesting thing to me, that because normally they know algebra, they know how to do it, and they just couldn't get it. That's what they said. So something to look at when you're looking at the.
Yeah, I think that's an apt description of at least one of the issues.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, very much so.
Okay.
And I'm afraid that doesn't have anything to do with any school district. It's just the Washington State test and how it's designed and then implemented. And I think Aaron said it best for me to understand. You can't teach the test.
Right.
But if you give the kids the agency to learn how to do the learning, those things will naturally follow. But it doesn't matter how screwy the state puts the test wording, there's always going to be a failure there. And I just don't think it really matters.
They don't have, they used to have the examples from the WASL, the prompts that were not used. They don't have prompts that they share that are examples of the type of writing and questions that they
You can get access to that. They're called the IABs, the interim assessment blocks, and schools are using those, and we're leaning into them. One of the math curricula that we're considering, looking at both elementary and the middle, is called illustrative math. And this is the Achieve the Core, which is a primary organization that is supporting systems for the the state test. And in their math progression documents, all their task examples are all illustrative math examples. They're all IM examples. And so it is the right kind of stuff. Now here's the interesting thing. The middle school actually wanted to have some time and ask the question, hey, we've been looking at this illustrative math content. Is that something we could try? And so when I met with them, my first comment to them was, be careful what you ask for. Because we just introduced a literacy curriculum that is based on the science of reading, that actually does things very different from the way that you would expect and the way that you probably know to be done. Our hardest job this year is to change the way people think. And I'm speaking specifically of teachers, but it's the work that needs to be done. In illustrative math, some of you guys will be familiar, particularly the former teachers, the I do, we do, you do scenario. So teacher teaches it, kids practice it, and then kids do it independently. Illustrative math flips that. Starts out with you do, so kids go in and they just start working math. Then it's like, okay, let's make meaning out of this as a class, and then the teacher zeroes in on the ideas of it. So that's a complete reverse for teachers that are teaching that. So that's why I was saying, be careful what you ask for, because what they need to do, and we have some very able and interested middle school math teachers. You just have to go into it with a very open. You have to be the lead learner in the classroom. You really do. You have to go in with a mindset that you're going to learn through this process. And when we did our adoption at Bookworms, I'm not doing very good at being long-winded, am I? She's timing me. I told her to time me because I probably think I'm shorter than I am. We had in our implementation, we had two primary goals in our implementation in Bookworms. One was to implement it the way it was supposed to be implemented, to teach it the way it was supposed to be taught. And our second goal, which is actually more important, is to learn about literacy throughout the process. And honestly, when we did these data carousels with writing, and teachers are looking at rubrics and they're looking at samples of students writing and they're trying to see where kids are strong and where the gaps are, stuff like that, they were struggling over some of the content of well, is that subject predicate complement, or is that, and how do I know if that's really a complex sentence as compared to, I mean, pushing into that, and what they needed to learn and understand to be able to do that was really pressed, because that's what the curriculum forces that. And so one of the things that we're talking about next year, and the trainer today asked it of teachers, what are your professional learning needs? What is it you're curious about? Please don't be embarrassed about that. Put it on a post-it note and let me, because we need to know what it is you need to learn to be able to be more comfortable in doing this. And the reality is, people do need to learn. And our math teachers are going to need to learn. And as long as they're willing,
Yeah.
God bless them and let's go.
I'm just curious about that flip. So it's
Yeah.
like, so the kids will just come in and they'll be given a problem and they'll try to figure it out on their own. So it's like kind of an assessment, and then they look at how
No,
they're doing it.
what it's really drilling in on, one of the national teacher mathematics standards for teaching practices teach procedural through conceptual knowledge. So start with conceptual understanding, not procedural understanding, and quite frankly, what's more traditional is the other way around. I learned procedural and then conceptual, and that's probably why I would say and call myself, I'm not a very good math student. And I had plenty of math, and I'm not unintelligent, but I don't remember it. And the teaching conceptual, if you teach the conceptual, kids, adults, always have an anchor with which to tie the procedures to. And you teach it conceptual, they actually have the ability to discriminate between procedures about whether this is the appropriate, or is there a better procedure, and will this procedure work here and here, because they have the conceptual foundation. So by starting kids with, cubes or something, or a problem or whatnot like that, and getting multiple ideas on the table, and this has been my experience as an adult in the training we've done with our secondary principals. The trainer we had started out with a visual model, and all she said literally was, what do you notice, what do you wonder? I'm like, notice, wonder, what are you talking about? And then starting in a conversation, particularly with Cliff Freeze, and he's like, well, here's what I think. I wonder if that means da-da-da. Then all of a sudden, okay, I'm in. And pretty soon, you are understanding fractions as a byproduct to this activity. So that's the design behind it, is to get the kids in their brain space to think not just limited procedure, because what the curriculum also offers, and our middle school teachers and our elementary teachers are hungry for this, which are the kinds of tasks that they can give kids that have multiple ways of solving and have multiple avenues, so that, because the reality is we don't all learn the same. A lot of Joe Bowler's work, who is the U-Cubed guru, a lot of Joe Bowler's work is there's no such thing as a math brain. And what she means by that is some people think they have it and some people don't. She goes, it's just not true. There's no research that proves that out. The only evidence that says that some can and some can't is the way we teach it.
I just want to say, as a student, I really appreciate that way of teaching, because I think that student apathy is a huge problem. And I think that if you teach based on trying to get kids to score well on a standardized test, is just going to make it so that they think that score reflects how they learned. And that is not at all. I mean, you develop and learn so many skills throughout your learning experience, whether that's just education-wise or just things that you learn about yourself. And I think that it's important for them to not only see their scores, but also understand that they learned how to solve fractions while also learning how to do this and all these other skills. And I think that's really important. I think that getting kids engaged in their learning and making them figure it out themselves is also going to develop their character. And I think that's really important. And I think that as soon as they can develop that character to have that confidence that they can do it themselves, they'll see better scores on those standardized testing. So I think all in all, it's just going to benefit in every route. So I really appreciate that.
I was going to say, I
Mic drop.
And I'm glad you're getting it out to parents because you know they're gonna be going, what is going on with this?
And the reason why I asked about the prompts was that we heard from Mrs. Basket and from Stephanie, Veldkamp. I know her personally, so I go, Stephanie, okay, Mrs.
Yeah.
Veldkamp, was that you can teach math conceptually, like you're talking about, but then you can also at times have practices with the math that you're doing, but write it up as if it is one of the prompts, so that the kids are used to that kind of language.
That's right.
You know, just like changing the way you read something when you're reading a technical manual compared to a the novel you're reading right now. You know, you can teach the kids, oh, I know this, I need to change the way I look at the question. But I agree, the best math is the math that, I'm sitting there at my house the other day going, not only is that a right angle, but the other part of it is a right angle. It doesn't have nothing to do with anything I was doing, but I'm just going, oh yeah, right angle. You know, it's when you see it in your thinking.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that because I think a lot of the time students think that education is supposed to be like, well, what am I going to use math later in life? And I think that it needs to come down to the fact that you might not use math later in life, but you're going to need to know how to problem solve. No matter how, in what world you live in, you're going to come face to face with a problem and you're going to need to know how to figure it out. And honestly, to me, that's what math's all about. So I think that it's important that they understand that you take more out of education than just what's 2 + 2.
And that's where they struggle the most, is the problem solving.
Exactly.
When they
And
have
when
to
you think about your question, that's a great answer to that question, right? Because there's it's not as much about the math as it is about the problem solving, the collaboration, the conversation.
Grace,
And as you move,
you had something to add as
It's
well.
not that exciting. I was just gonna say. I had a teacher. Oh, what was it? 8th grade. I've heard her on the grapevine that she may be coming back, but I was in advanced math. And that's what I thought she was. Just walk her.
She's coming back?
Yeah, she's gonna be in back school. Anyways, that's a different story. Anyways, I had her as an 8th grader, and I've been taught very much so, this is how you do it, here's practice, now just do it on your own. She flipped that for me, and I will admit, that was rough at first. But after I started getting into it, and I've been trying my best with the teachers I've had and other stuff I've had to get into that method of learning. It's helped so much. I've managed this far. I'm in my 4th year of math, so. But I really think that switch is really important, especially basically everything was Michaela was saying.
And to be fair to our math teachers, they're math teachers for a reason. They're math teachers for the reason that they were taught the way they teach. And they were successful at it. Kids do learn. There are kids that do learn procedure and then develop conceptual math out of the procedures. There are kids that get that. I'm not one of those kids. But the ones that are those kids, they raise to the level in the math class of being smart, being math, you've got a math brain and blah, blah, blah. And you know what I want to do? I want to be a teacher. And you're going to teach it the same way. But what they're facing now, because the teacher's heart doesn't always correlate with the teacher's head, right? The teacher's heart is struggling right now with, okay, I am doing this, and yes, I'm making some progress, but we've got a bunch of kids out there that we're not making any progress. And I can't live with that. I mean, that's what they're saying, right? So they're now taking on that challenge of how do I think differently about what I've always thought comfortably and confident about, and how do I now think differently about this so that I can, as the reference says, become all things to all men so you might win the more, so.
So I want to take it back. It's a very interesting discussion, but I want to take it back. Kind of the reason we asked for an update on curriculum was because we wanted to ensure that there's opportunities for community engagement throughout this process, and for the community parents to learn along with us as we're exploring new curriculum, and then how communicating our selection process. And so I want to kind of take it back to that. And I appreciate all the information you provided in here. I think something that you mentioned is a little bit concerning to me, and that's the timeline for curriculum adoption, that it could take so many years, and that it's not a fit for where we're at today. So I'm not looking for an answer now, but annually we review the policies surrounding curriculum adoption. And I think I would challenge you, I want to make sure that we have the flexibility in our policy to adjust our process and our how we go about doing this so that it meets the needs of our students and our staff. And so I would challenge you with that.
Okay.
And Ed, you as well. I think we have a pretty typical curriculum adoption process.
Yeah.
But I'd like us to look at it when it's appropriate, when it's time for that review, when you have the resources to dedicate some thought to that. I think that timeline is absurd, and we should be, you know, in our system, I'm proud of the fact that we're nimble and we can make change on behalf of our students. And it sounds like this is a little bit laborious, or even a lot laborious. So I want to make sure that we retain community involvement along the way, but perhaps there's some opportunity to streamline it. And if the community is engaging with us in some areas and not other areas, maybe we can build that in and make adjustments to get our students, you know, get good curriculum and good learning procedures and teaching tools in the hands of our teachers and students as quickly as they need them.
Yeah, if we start doing math differently, kids are going to be going home and telling their parents about what's, you said it, right, Joanne? They're going to be going home and saying, and teacher, what? We didn't learn math that way. So there's going to be a need to parent math nights or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's been, you know, I think that's been a common theme is even in our dignity and agency conversations is how do we bring families along with us? I don't want the students to have an experience at school that's so cool and they're excited about, and then go home and teachers are like, what is it? Or parents are, you know, lost.
I don't know how to help them, that's what I always hear. I don't know how to help them when they bring their work.
Or don't know the questions to ask. You know, we want to have some cohesiveness and support for our kids as they're learning, and support for families as they're trying something new too. So anyway, I wanted to bring that conversation. I love the teaching conversation. I learned a ton listening to you guys. But I wanted to bring it back for the purpose of why we're talking about this in a board meeting and what's some of our takeaways from it. And looking at that process was one of my takeaways.
Well, I appreciate the challenge because I wanted to bring it to your attention because I know it's the way we have to do it if we're going to get it done. And so I didn't want you to be blindsided by it, but we'll take it the next step and make sure that we, you know, that it's articulated so that there are no surprises.
And I also want to thank you for mapping out what's ahead. Because I think we've gone, you know, there's some years where we haven't talked about curriculum at all. And so I'm grateful to see all of these subjects on the table for conversation. And, you know, whether or not we move forward or not, I'm just glad we're really looking at it and updating the materials. So.
And it's kind of nice that that other district's done that because that can speed it along a little.
Power of networking. Yeah.
Board, any other takeaways from this? I want to move ahead in our agenda. Good? Good. Yep. Kayla, have a great evening. And thank you also for your comments, both of you.
Debbie, turn your watch off.
Every time you talk, I'm going to bottle it.
Take her and stand her at the list.
Yes. I'm just going to take you to those PI. I was going to say,
there you
let's
go.
sit down. This is great. You need to hear them.
Thank you.
All right, so moving along, Director Rapp, thank you very much. Sorry to kind of cut the conversation there.
Did you forget?
Oh, yeah,
that's important.
definitely.
All right, so for our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So I will entertain a motion for items number 1 and 2.
Motion to approve items 1 and 2 on the consent agenda.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And we have a few important action items. The first item is our superintendent's contract for 2023-2026. I will entertain a motion for that.
I move to approve the superintendent's contract for the years 2023 through 2026.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is presented by Superintendent Hudson Beeler. It's our capital facilities plan.
Yes, and that will be in turn reciprocated, presented by Director Slagle. We have for you the 2023-2029 capital facilities plan. We feel it's very important for our public and for you just to have some highlights about where do we see enrollment growing, where do we see growth happening. All of those calculations not only drive our short and long-term facilities planning, but they drive what's known as the impact fee that we submit to Pierce County. Our entirety plan, after you approve, that becomes amended into their comprehensive county plan, and that's the justification or the basis behind our ability to charge impact fees. So Director Slagle is going to walk through just some highlights from this year's plan, answer any questions that you may have, and then it'll be ready for your consideration for approval by resolution.
So wanted to start tonight by saying thank you to Superintendent Hudson Beeler and the board. This is probably the last activity for my internship over the course of the last 2 years. So I really appreciate the trust and the grace you've had with me and the opportunity to really engage in authentic work that is going to make impact on the system. So just real high overview, you guys have seen the plan. We do it every year. We build it for a course of 6 years. We take stock of our current facilities. We take stock of our current other land holdings. We can see that right now we're pretty heavily dependent upon portable or temporary facilities. And this is sort of going to become a recurring theme as we walk through how we approach as a district dealing with the growth that we know is coming to us in the next several years. So we have met with the 4 local development groups twice this spring, once in essentially private sessions with each developer, and then once in a collaborative session with all the developers and all for the district at the table. You'll notice that one of the changes from the 22-28 plan is the push out of completion dates. So because of a variety of factors, the original planning disrupted by COVID supply chains, increase in interest rates, depression of the housing market, each of the development groups has kind of bumped out at either a year, 18 months, in some cases 2 years, where they think that their developments are going to come full on. And so that's changing, made significant changes to how we're predicting some of our enrollment growth over time. So we're moving forward with this model, which projected enrollment, which is built. Marcy Bannon has her hands deep in the data tables that sit behind this. The state's enrollment projections, if you go and look on OSPI, actually show us just staying at a 1.0 growth rate, so no growth over the course of time. Because they do this thing where they take the enrollment dip during COVID and then project that forward. So their 10-year forecast, in some cases, shows like a decrease in enrollment of like a 0.95 multiplier. We know that that does not reflect our reality as the developments come online. And so we are moving forward with this enrollment projection, which has been reviewed by outside counsel, takes into account growth rates that we use a demographer out of the Davis Demography Group, whose reports you've seen, to help us walk our projections forward. So this slide really kind of talks about as time goes by, if we don't put any additional capacity in the district, where we will land very quickly. So we will be, even with portables in our current model, we will be short over 900 seats for students. So echoing back to Mr. Collins, the dad, the need for movement is urgent. So, and the CFAC work that you're all familiar with, that 18 months worth of work, is really foundational. Relying on that as the input from community that really formulated the basis of our moving forward with the bond campaign. And it's just a reminder of what the ultimate recommendations out of the CFAC group were. I think our bond package represented that, and I know that that is going to have to be a conversation coming up moving forward about whether or not the scope of that recommended project still stays where it is as we look at increasing costs. And you'll see that reflected shortly. If we were to use the original CFAC committee's recommendations, this is where we press out when we look at projections. So even with a new elementary school coming online, by 2028 at the K-5 level, we will still be in a position where we are needing to use temporary facilities to house the kids that are coming in. And that'll be that then is reflected in anticipation of a deeper future of a third elementary site sited in the Tahali area to absorb the growth that we would expect to see through about 2032, 2033 as Tahali comes fully online. When we look at the middle school will also need, in the short term, somewhere in the next 6-7 years, some additional portable capacity added that then will have to be addressed in terms of a potential second middle school site sited in the Tahali, most likely in the Tahali neighborhood, to absorb the growth on that side of the district. When we look at the high school, even with the addition of, you'll notice that that is now put at 250. In the original plan, which we looked at last year for 22-28, there was conversation about a 300 student addition to the high school. Because of costs, that has been slightly reduced in capacity, but does put us in a position where by 2028, 2029, we'll still need additional temporary capacity at the high school, recognizing that we will stay at one high school town. Like there's commitment, and that was resounding feedback from the CFAC committee, also been reflected by board desires to keep a unified high school presence here in the center of town. So there's some adjustment in terms of the financial plan, in just terms of looking at the costing out of the projects. You'll notice that because of the 1-year delay for the elementary project, it's about a 10% escalation. We're building in a 10% escalation of cost, both in that project, in the Ptarmigan Ridge addition, and in the renovation at OHS and the construction of some new lab and athletics facilities. And so what are the implications of that, right? We went to our community with a $150 million bond package to realize the same sort of improvements. We're probably having to look at something much closer to a $165 million bond project in the future. So that's the bond project that Mr. Collins passionately advocated for in 2024. Our bond capacity is growing. Our assessed value has crossed to about $3.3 billion, which leaves us right now at about $169 million worth of bond capacity, and that's about mid-May. So the district is well positioned to pursue that sort of large bond in terms of the bonding capacity. So obviously there's a lot of work to be done to work with our public to help them understand the need for now a $165 million project that was $150 million a year ago, but it's 10% over the course of a year. So, and there's still conversation around the impact fee and work being done by council to press on the county around that. I'll show you a figure on that shortly. And then the student generation rate, as the new developments come on, we'll get a much better picture of how many children are actually, quote, produced by each new house that comes online. And Director Bannon is able to track that to the child by looking at impact fees that the district receives, and then what students are associated with those new homes that are coming online. So it's a really detailed, it's a very fine-grained calculation. It's going to help us build a very accurate picture of how many students are coming with the developments that are coming online. And so the impact fee, we've seen this and we all kind of shake our heads. So right now, under current cost models, our calculations are that it takes almost $50,000 to construct a seat for a student that moves into the Orting School District as new development. So there's a 50% ordinance, which would limit us to being able to collect $24,000 per new home. That, however, state legislation, Pierce County, as you're aware, has a much more restrictive impact fee collection. So we're able to collect less than 10% what our calculations are that it takes to house a new student. So that impact fee dilemma is an ongoing concern for us as we live in southeast Pierce County, and we're one of the last places that big developers can work because we still have trees. And so work with the Pierce County Council is going to be a big part of our work moving forward. So happy to entertain any questions. That's a very high level overview.
No questions, just thank you for the update and the explanations. Both of these definitions are helpful.
Did a good job. Thank you for your work and service during your internship here.
Oh, there were a few hours. I did my hours log. I had to turn that into the university. I hit the mark.
Meet or exceed.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just say I'm very proud of what you've learned, how you've grown in your internship. There are many different pathways you can choose, and if you ever chose a different pathway from instruction and leaving Bath to facilities, operations, you've demonstrated a great capacity both in the transition planning, the thinking about capital improvement. You've been at the table all year long, and just thank you for everything you've done to help set us up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alternative learning experience. Oh, yes, that's right, thank you. For the resolution 2022-2023 capital facilities plan, I need a vote on that.
I move to approve resolution number 6.2, 2022-2023 capital facilities plan.
Thank you, can I get a second?
I second it.
Thank you, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Now I will turn it over to the alternative learning experience. And this one is also prepared by. So if there's no questions, you don't see any come through, then I will accept a motion.
I move to approve the alternative learning experience program.
Second it.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Director Rao. And now we are at board comments. So I wanted to save some of my comments for the end. First, Grace, thank you for your service on the board and your passion for our students and carrying their voice forward into our conversations. and you are one of the busiest seniors I know. And I have a feeling that I'll probably continue no matter where you're at. So we just want to take this opportunity to say thank you and recognize your service here.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to ask, does Grace get to keep her name plate?
I will defer to Bonnie on that.
Yes, we've already discussed.
Okay, I was gonna make sure. I didn't even know that, but I was making sure. And she gets her picture out there.
Yeah.
That was my other question.
Put that on your dorm wall.
I'll take it with me out there.
I think you should give it to your mom.
She might like that too.
I want to formally say thank you also to David Slagle, again, for your work in our district, supporting our system and bringing your expertise and ideas and leadership throughout your internship here with us. And in also your regular role with the high school. So thank you so much. And good luck to you and throughout. They're lucky to have you. And then this is also Director Willis's last meeting. Clearly, he's well prepared for it to be his last meeting. But Chris, we want to thank you very much for your leadership and your service to so many students in our district. And I have to imagine that this is probably not the thing you'll miss the most, but we really appreciated your work here with us on the board and all the work that you've done for our district. Thank you.
I want to also add, as a member of a family who Mr. Willis's work has really benefited from. I want to thank you for the people you brought to the district. You brought some amazing people to the district. I want to thank you for your priorities where you put the kids and the family. And JJ thanks you. And so does his family.
Dang it, Callie. You guys, I'm supposed to lead the meeting. How am I supposed to do that?
Ditto, thank you.
Chris, you're really honestly the best sped director I've ever worked for. I'm being honest. You've helped us with everything we ask for. You're always there, always visiting us, and you always put the kids first. And I love that about you. And yes.
Board, you're more than welcome to attend a retirement celebration we'll have for him. Right now, the count is around 100 or so. There's going to be some special surprises and more opportunities to say goodbye. So I believe that's on the 14th. He loves being the center of attention and right out in front and in the middle. So we're going to do our best to just ham it up for him and help him know how much he's appreciated and loved. Hopefully he'll be on time. We'll see. We'll see.
Didn't know about this, but
You know, and we're thanking him for special ed, but hey, thank you for the wonderful job you've also done with the transportation department. You've taken on so many hats, and so I'm having to know a few people over there at the transportation department. They have really, really appreciated it also. So, thank you.
Yeah, I enjoy this. I enjoy sitting back at the staff meetings and heckling. I've enjoyed that tremendously. Getting to know all the drivers and then touching base with the drivers and being on the bus with the drivers. It's been very nice to get to know them, and I know they appreciated the time I've spent there. Honestly, just sitting in the back, coming into the not all the time, but most of the time they enjoy having me come into the staff room and just sit and chat with them. So no, that's been a good time. And then they always have good food there too, so. It's been very good.
They've actually mentioned that they really appreciated that we heard that somebody should come to their staff meeting once in a while, and I heard right away, oh yeah, Chris is attending them. Okay, great, and they really appreciate that they feel
It's been good.
listened to. And they have a tough job, and I couldn't do that for anything on this earth.
Agreed.
Very good. Board, any additional comments? Okay. All right, well, with that,